So, what happens when you put an entire idea on trial? Not a person, but an idea. Well, we're about to find out. Today, we're diving into Inherit the Wind, a truly classic courtroom drama, where the defendant isn't just a man, it's a whole way of thinking.
Okay, let's really think about that question, because it gets right to the heart of this story. It all starts with one guy, Bertram Cates, a young science teacher who gets arrested for the crime of teaching evolution. But what starts as his personal legal trouble, well, it explodes into an all-out war for the soul of his town. Now, here's the thing that makes this play so powerful. It's not just some made-up story. Not at all. It's actually deeply rooted in one of the most famous, most sensational courtroom battles in all of American history. To really get it, we've got to go back a bit. It all kicks off in 1859 when Darwin publishes his game-changing book. Flash forward to 1925, and those ideas lead to the Scopes monkey trial, this absolute media circus. Then, 30 years later, in 1955, that real-life drama becomes this play. But here's the real kicker. The playwrights weren't just writing about the past. They were living through the McCarthy era, and they used this historical trial as a stand-in, a metaphor, for the paranoid witch hunts for communists that were happening all around them. So the play takes us to this fictional town called Hillsborough. But don't think of it as just a backdrop. No way. The town itself is basically a character in this whole drama, a place where everything people believe is about to get shaken right down to its foundations. Just picture it, a town that's pretty set in its ways, a place that runs on tradition and faith. That's Hillsborough. So when this trial rolls in, bringing big city lawyers and reporters with it, it's not just a news story. It's like a bolt of lightning that's about to jolt this quiet little town wide awake. And that awakening is really a collision of two totally different worlds. On one side, you have fundamentalism, the belief that the Bible is literally true, that tradition is everything. And on the other side, freedom of thought, the right to ask questions, to use reason, and to follow science. This trial just smashes those two worlds together, right in the middle of town. So who are the ones arguing this monumental case? Well, the play gives us these two unforgettable characters. Each one is an absolute giant in their own right, and they perfectly represent the two sides of this war of ideas. In one corner, for the prosecution, we've got Matthew Harrison Brady. He's a political legend, a hero to Christian fundamentalists, and he's there to defend the Word of God. And in the other corner, we've got Henry Drummond, a brilliant, super sharp lawyer from Chicago. And Drummond, he's not just there for a teacher. He's defending the right to think itself. I mean, this quote right here, this is pure Drummond. For him, being wise doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you've got the guts to say, you know what, I don't know. And then you have the curiosity to go find out. That's his whole philosophy in a nutshell. And then you've got Brady. He uses this quote from the Bible's book of Proverbs. But what's so fascinating is he says it to the town's super zealous preacher, almost as a warning not to go too far. It's a moment that shows you that Brady isn't just a simple villain. He's complicated. He's worried that if you push your beliefs too hard, you'll end up with nothing but air. So this is all building and building to a point that Drummond makes again and again. This whole case isn't really about Bertram Cates breaking some dusty old law. It's about something way, way bigger. So let's really ask, what was his real crime? Was it just teaching from a biology book? Or was it daring to introduce an idea that made everyone in town feel, well, a little uncomfortable with their own certainty? Because when you get right down to it, this is what's on trial. The right to think for yourself. The classic story of one person standing up against the crowd. That tension between the big city and the small town. And maybe most of all, the endless search for truth, even when it's scary. And to really make this point hit home, Drummond tells this story from when he was a kid. It's about a toy he wanted more than anything in the world. This absolutely beautiful, shiny rocking horse. It was called the Golden Dancer. So he finally gets it, he hops on for that first magical ride, and it just shatters, breaks into a million pieces. It was all looks, no substance. And his lesson from that is so profound. You have to look behind the paint. You have to question things that look perfect on the surface to see what's really there. It's a message for everyone, not just for Cates. This all leads us to the trial's incredible climax. And the outcome? Well, it's probably not what you'd expect. On paper, it's a loss. But in the real world, it's a massive, massive win.
Drummond pulls an absolutely brilliant, totally unheard of move. He calls the prosecutor, Matthew Harrison Brady himself, to the witness stand as an expert on the Bible. And under Drummond's sharp questioning, Brady's absolute insistence on a literal interpretation just starts to fall apart. He gets trapped. And then the crowd, his crowd, starts to see the cracks. And for the very first time, they laugh at him.
So the verdict comes in. Guilty. But then comes the sentence. The judge, who can feel the whole mood of the courtroom shifting, fines Cates just $100. Sure, Cates technically lost, but $100? That's not a punishment. It's a total slap on the wrist. Plus, this was the first trial ever broadcast on national radio. The entire country was listening as the argument against evolution crumbled. It was, without a doubt, a huge moral victory for freedom of thought. And you really see the impact of this on people. Look at Rachel, the preacher's daughter. She was terrified of new ideas at the start. But by the end, she has this incredible realization. She understands that if you kill a thought just because you're scared of it, a little part of you dies too. Her transformation is amazing. The play wraps up with one of the most powerful final images you'll ever see. After all the chaos is over and Brady has tragically collapsed, Drummond is left alone in the courtroom, and he sees two books left on the table, the Bible and Darwin's On the Origin of Species. And what he does next? Well, that's the entire message of the play. He doesn't pick one and leave the other. He picks up both of them, kind of weighs them in his hands like a scale, and then he puts them right next to each other in his briefcase. The point was never that science beat religion. It's that both have weight, both have value, and that maybe they can and must find a way to coexist. And that leaves us with a question that's just as real today as it was in 1925 or 1955. When scientific progress and deeply held beliefs clash, who gets to decide where the line is? And how do we make room for both in our world and in ourselves?